I used to like them. I do not anymore. I am not for the illusions, because I feel that it's like a trick, and I don't like that. It's kind of a call into dignity, if you ask me, like using the black on the floor so people don't leave the front door because it looks like a hole. That's a scare tactic. Like, I used to be all for those things, but now I see the kind of dignity issue behind it, and it doesn't necessarily work. And if let's say it's a waterfall and you see someone walk out it, but you're not allowed to walk out it, that just adds more confusion and agitation. And you're like, someone just walked through, that makes no sense. And now that, or a bookcase, like, why can they go? Why is there an exit? It just doesn't compute. And I just feel like it's a lack of dignity in some areas. I used to honestly be all for them. But the last 2 years, I've really opened my eyes to the trickery we sometimes do, which is, there's a line there, because I am all about therapeutic fibbing, if you will, the fiblets, lying for their betterment. I would want someone to lie to me, and so I'm not in this perpetual state of grief or whatever. I agree with that. But yeah, when it comes to the facade of certain things, I have a hard time now. And at the end of the day, nothing's going to work fully for everyone, especially with dementia, but anyone. I mean, we're all so different. So for some people, that might be really comforting. For others, that just wouldn't make sense because that would never be in their home.
Love a good bookshelf door. Love a good bookshelf door. Not painted, but rather like a decal, like a printed decal that's a realistic thing. I think the murals on doors don't really make any sense because sometimes people will paint like a waterfall. Well, a waterfall is not a stagnant thing. Like, that doesn't make a sense, and it wouldn't be inside. So, I've done the bookshelf door as a wall, like a decal, like a car wrap decal, and put it on the door, and it has worked really well. Certain states, again, like certain states and certain counties within those states, like the fire marshal will put up a fight and will say, oh, you can't disguise an exit door. And it's like, well, we don't want people living with dementia exiting through this door. That's sort of the whole point. So there's that. But I think it's a really good thing for people who are really distracted by the door and they really want to leave. And people will say, oh, well, we just need to do a better job engaging them. And yes, like that and this other thing, because it's also preventative. Like, I worked in a community that was not a secure environment. So I had residents who would like leave through the door, and it was a huge waste of everybody's time and energy because we would just spend all this time going and getting them. And I was like, we can't even engage these people because they're too busy leaving. So, yeah.
So 20 years ago, when we first created them, and they were first created, I saw value in it because people would go to the door. It was locked. They couldn't get out. And it created a great amount of distress. They would beat on the door, pound on the door, try to get out. So that at least gave them a hint. You can't get out here, which was true. It's not an option. For me, if people are roaming around and roaming around and roaming around, however, it says to me, we've got two issues. There's not enough to do here that gives me a sense of value, purpose, fun. I don't want to be here, and I'm looking for an exit. So what are we doing to mitigate that? And if we're not doing something, then a bookshelf is not the answer. What's the answer is me working and figuring out how do we engage one another, and how do we just quit locking doors and pretending like, put something up there so nobody knows. I don't want people distressed. So worst case scenario, okay, put it up. But if I try to take a book off it, you better figure out what you're going to do about that. Where's the waterfall? I thought this was a waterfall. This is stupid. You better have an answer. And I would say 99.9% of the time, no one has trained staff to do anything. All they've done is put up a waterfall or put up a bookshelf. And they don't have any plan for anything. It's like, if you make me think it's a bookshelf, where's the book? I've got to be able to pick up a book. So do you have books real nearby with a little bookshelf that you can say, you know what? Here, take a look at this one. See what you think of it. because what we're trying to do is use environment to trick people into staying somewhere. We aren't giving them and staff the things they need, the tools they need, the resources they need to make my life feel valuable. Why am I trying to get out? Because there's nothing here for me.
So when people do something like this, it is, I'm guessing, because their loved one wanders, like moves around and might go somewhere that is unsafe for them. That's where these kinds of strategies come into play. So to answer your question bluntly, sure, for some people that might be fine, if it's not causing agitation or frustration. So again, we look to the person with dementia to figure out if this is the right approach for them. If they look and it's a wallpaper bookshelf and they don't do anything with it and they're no longer going out of the door, that could be a great response. I don't see anything like majorly wrong with it, assuming we are still taking care of their need of whatever's getting them to wander, right? Like, so we have to look at what's underneath that behavior. So we're not just trying to stop a behavior from happening. I do think we need to prioritize how do we keep people safe? Like that's a big priority. But we don't want to just focus on stopping the behavior, because if we do, we risk not meeting a need that would really improve their quality of life. So, for example, let's say there's somebody who likes to wander out of the house and go onto a busy highway that's in front of their home. Big safety concern, right? So the family member is going to try to do whatever they can. I'm going to put a wallpaper of a bookshelf on the door. Maybe they'll realize that's not where to go. That's fine. But now what are we doing for this person who is showing distress of some sort, of wanting to leave? So are we giving them a way to exercise? Are we giving them a way to exert their energy? Are we trying to figure out, is there something they're looking for? Are they thirsty? So it's really making sure we're keeping them safe is what I picture those things to be, like the disguises. Safety is good, but we cannot then ignore, is there something here my loved one is trying to communicate, or the resident in this facility is trying to communicate, that I still want to give attention to? I like to use the example sometimes of, let's say somebody is agitated and walking and they're like yelling and frustrated. Well, we could jump to how do we stop them from being yelling and agitated and walking all around? Okay, well, we could jump to a medication. Okay, so now we've given them a medication that maybe sedates them, but all they were trying to do was get water because they're thirsty, but they couldn't communicate it. So now what we have is somebody who is sedated, who can't move, who is still thirsty. Like that makes me sad to think about. So I just want to make sure whenever we're coming up with an environmental strategy to stop a behavior, it's not just about stopping the behavior. It's, okay, we're keeping them safe, but what else might they be trying to communicate here? Is there something else for me to learn? Is there something else that still allows them to do whatever they're trying to do or accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish?